exploring the 4 pillars of a healthy home, and today we're going to focus on our emotional and spiritual well-being with Bruce Van Natta, Sweet Bread Ministries. Okay, I got a laundry list of questions here I'm going to throw at you, so just bear with me here. First of all, Sweet Bread Ministries. My mother baked bread and my grandma baked bread, and they always say, well, I'm making sweet bread, and that meant to me donuts and sweet rolls and all of that kind of stuff. Where did you come up with the name?
It's a long, involved story, but bottom line, there's a guy that came and prayed for me after the accident happened. Most of my intestines had been removed from the accident, and God gave me a dream. And just to paraphrase the dream or shorten it, basically a guy in this dream came up to me, and we were eating sweet bread, and sweet bread, like you just mentioned, like your grandma, cinnamon swirls, stuff like that, frosting. Anyway, I woke up. I asked the Lord what the dream meant. I knew it was this was before the accident happened.
Okay.
I knew it was something. And all the Lord told me was that it was, had to do with an old pastor that used to be pastor at a church, and he moved to New York. So I called him. I remember standing out in my driveway, and I called him up that morning. I said, hey, listen to this dream. I told him the dream. I said, it doesn't make any sense to me. I prayed, and God said it had to do with you. What do you think? And he said, I think you ate too much pizza before you went to bed.
Okay.
That dream doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay.
Fast forward 6, 7, 8 months. We go on vacation in New York. We're at his church. He's introducing me to people in his new congregation, and up walks the man from my dream, dressed exactly as I saw him in my dream, literally in the same pants, same shirt, same black cowboy boots, the exact person I saw in my dream. I turned to him and I said to Ryan, the pastor, hey, this guy, he's the guy from my dream that I called and asked you about. I said, this is the guy. So the 3 of us stood there and shrugged our shoulders, didn't know what it meant, blew it off. A year later, the accident happens. God wakes that guy up 2 mornings in a row at 5 a.m., told him to buy a plane ticket, fly to Wisconsin from New York, and pray for me, and God would do a miracle. The first morning, he blew it off. He told his pastor and his wife, but he didn't do it. The second morning at 5 a.m., and he told me later he doesn't like to get up. So, I mean, it was a big deal to him. The second morning, God woke him up at 5. That day, he bought the ticket, flew to Wisconsin, prayed for me in the hospital, and God did a creative miracle and literally gave me half my intestines, several feet, 9 to 11 feet of intestines back. Otherwise, I would have died a long time ago.
Okay.
So sweet bread.
I
got so much now out of that I want.
Okay. So, but here's the thing: the sweet bread, it was prophetic in the dream because it was like you said, like sweet taste bread. And the first church I spoke at, the pastor asked me in front of the congregation, hey, why did you call it sweet bread? I recount the dream just like I did you. And he started crying. And he goes, well, you know what sweet bread is, right? And I go, yeah, bread with like cinnamon and
sugar,
like that. He goes, no. He runs out of the church, runs out of the sanctuary, goes to his office, prints out Google sweet bread, hands it to me at the pulpit and says, read this to the congregation. And sweet bread in Europe is the pancreas and intestines of an animal. That is exactly what got healed when the guy prayed for me. My intestines, my pancreas.
Gosh.
The exact thing. And God told me to call it sweet bread. And I argued with him for like 6 months. And I'm like, that sounds like such a sissy name for a ministry. Can't I have like a more manly name? And he kept saying, no, sweet bread, sweet. And I didn't even know until that day of speaking in that guy's church what the sweet bread even represented.
Okay.
So
Okay, I gotta go because I don't know the accident. So
okay, we're gonna get to that.
Okay,
but first,
right, okay.
before I'm gonna get to the accident. But right now, I just want to get back to Ryan and the relationship that you had with Ryan. Were you a elder in the church here, at your local church, or how did you get to be so close with Ryan that you would call him up?
He was a pastor at my local church. My wife worked there. We were on the men's group.
Sure.
I was on the I was very active at church. I was on the council.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time.
Very close.
He became a close friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's get to the accident. So you've written 2 books, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
One of them is a Miraculous Life, and that's you have a trailer on your website that I would encourage everyone to go to sweetbreadministries.com and look at the trailer for the book because it's very good, and it was inspiring to me. And then you've written a second book, or actually maybe it was the first book, Saved by Angels.
Yep.
Okay, Saved by Angels. That one is where you described your accident.
They both have the accident in it, but the Saved by Angels was the first book. And it talks about what that relationship
So
with God
run
looks
through
like
that
day
for
to
the
day.
listeners. What are we talking about here? What accident? What happened? And just kind of walk us through it.
Sure. It was 2006. I owned a diesel repair business. I went around the state of Wisconsin doing on-site diesel repair, working on engines that couldn't be brought easily to a shop. It was the Thursday before deer hunting. I'd worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It was the last day of the job. I was minutes before I'm walking out the door. I mean, I was done. It was a Peterbilt logging truck at a logging business an hour south of my home. And we'd started the engine to run it to make sure it was no longer leaking, because I was called in because I had an antifreeze leak.
Okay.
It's running 15 or 20 minutes. I'm wiping my tools off, putting them back in my service truck. And the other mechanic comes up, taps me on the shoulder. He said, "Hey, before you go, would you look at one more thing?" I looked at the clock. I didn't answer him because I was thinking in my head, I was doing the math in my head, and it was already, if I walked out the door right then, it was going to be a 13-hour and 10-minute day. I was used to work at 12s, but it's already going to be 13-hour, 10-minute. I didn't really want to stay later. So I'm kind of, he looks at me, he goes, "You know what? It'll just take you a couple minutes." And he says, "You don't have to fix anything." And he says, "I've got this other spot that's leaking on the same engine, big Caterpillar diesel engine in this Peterbilt." He said, "It's got a dirty spot." He said, "Diagnose it, and then I'll schedule to come back in at a later time to fix it." So for anybody that's never looked underneath one of these the biggest semi trucks there, they're called Class 8 trucks. If you're to look underneath that front bumper, going from that little space underneath the front bumper to the ground, if you're to look underneath the front of these trucks from the front to the back, what you see is the lowest thing to the ground is the front axle.
Mm-hmm.
The front axle has the two front wheels that move when you turn your steering wheel. And basically, it's just a big steel I-beam that goes from the left side of the truck to the right side of the truck. And on this truck, it carried that axle, those two front tires, carried 5 to 6 tons of weight. So 10 to 12,000 pounds of weight on the two front tires, not the weight of the truck, but just what's on the two front tires. I ended up going underneath the truck, underneath that axle. The other mechanic had jacked it up. We had not used any safety equipment. I saw that he'd done that, but I went under there anyway. I'm looking at the bottom of the engine. I yelled to him to shut the engine off. I don't need it running anymore. I decided what I thought the leak was.
Mm-hmm.
The jack ended up slipping that was holding that axle up, and this 5 to 6 tons of steel fell through the middle of my body, held up by a wheel on the right side, but no wheel on the passenger side. So the axle hit, if you can picture 5 to 6 tons of steel dropping, a foot, and you can imagine the crazy loud explosion noise. But the weird thing for me laying underneath it when it fell, it wasn't just the steel on cement explosion noise. I heard liquid, swirling liquid. Turns out that was me. When the truck fell through the middle of my body, basically between the bottom of my ribs and my pelvic, when it fell through the middle of me, on impact, blood shot out of my mouth. It didn't dribble out later. I mean, when it fell through the middle of my body, blood shot out. When it came out, in that instant of realization that the truck had just fallen on me, I just called out and I said, "Lord, help me."
Wow.
I said it twice. When I say, just for reference, when I say Lord, I'm referring to Jesus Christ. That's who I didn't say the name Jesus, but that's what I was praying to, was Jesus, help me, Lord, help me. Then I looked down and I saw that the axle had fallen all the way through me, and there was about 1 inch of space between the bottom of the axle and the cement on the left side of my body, meaning I knew my body was approximately 1 inch thick on the left side. And on the other side, it was maybe a couple inches of space between the bottom axle and cement. So, and I knew I was about a couple inches thick there. For reference, I don't have a belly button anymore, but where I used to have a belly button straight through the back is my L4, L5 vertebrae. According to the radiology reports, I was thinner than my spine because both of those vertebrae were spider cracked and D-shaped.
Wow.
So I was just a little bit thinner than my spine in the middle, a lot thinner on the left, and probably thicker on the right. Incredible pain that I can't even describe. It was absolutely off the charts. Horrendous pain. The other mechanic got out of the truck, looked underneath the truck, went into shock. And sometimes when people go into shock, they freeze. That's exactly what he did. He froze up. He wasn't moving. He wasn't doing anything. I'm begging him to shut the truck off because he never did shut the engine off. He got inside to shut it off, but it slipped. The jack slipped before he could shut the engine off. I'm begging him to shut the engine off because it was vibrating on top of me, and it was where the axle had those two vertebrae broken, and everything that's messed up inside of me. It just was exaggerating the pain. So I'm begging him to shut it off. Finally, he shut it off. I begged him to call 911. He called 911. He went and got the jack, and he couldn't put the jack back underneath the axle to get it off my body. So he was trying to figure out, it's in the middle of nowhere. Volunteer fire department. Very, very rural, as you'd expect a logging business to be. So he's figuring out how he's going to get the truck off me, and he put that bottle jack underneath the front passenger side spring, just a suspension component that's at least attached to that axle. So the problem is leaf springs are a big arch spring, and you don't want to ever jack something on an arch. So he started jacking up the arch. I was telling him not to. He kept doing it. Finally, the jack caught on a little edge of a little bracket, and he jacked the truck up off my body. And when I looked down and I saw my body for the first time, top to bottom, because I couldn't see past, because that axle's so tall, when it followed through me, all I could see was basically from my ribs up. But once he took the truck off my body, now I could see my whole body. And I had a work uniform that had the name of my company on it, and a couple patches and a couple of pockets here. And when I looked at my body after he jacked the truck up, my work uniform literally went straight down or straight back towards my spine, followed along my spine, and came back up at my pelvic. So there was this ridiculous flat spot in the middle of my body that was so, I guess the word is surreal, that there's nothing in real life to compare it to at all. And as I looked at that, all I could think was, I'm a dead man. There's nobody that can live from this.
I didn't hear any music coming in, so we got to run out the break. We'll come back right after these messages.
Wow.
Unbelievable story. I can't wait to come back after the break. Stay with us. Our Healthy Homes return in just a couple seconds.
But when he calls me sugar, I love that man with all my might. Sugar in the morning, sugar in the afternoon. Sugar after dinner, sugar in every room. He says I'm sweet as I can be. When he calls me that name, it does things to me. I tell him, honey, you can call me sugar.